guys, we're here with Caleb from Phoenix Resale.
How's it going?
And actually, you know what I was just thinking about? You are the first YouTube gaming channel that I've ever watched.
Really?
Like your content, when it started popping off, like it popped up on like the Exploring page, you know, all that. And I'm like, I obviously watched the GameCube Gambit, and that stuff really inspired me to want to collect.
So it must have been a while ago then, huh?
No, you're awesome, man. I love the humor that you've been able to have, and like the fact that you can push all those haters out, because like I don't know why people hate on you, because you're such a genuine guy. You did a great panel the other day, and you have so much to give to the community, and people just love to hate on people who are successful. So it must mean you're doing something right.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. It's not something that I think any of us are really prepared for, but you know, it comes with the territory. It's not something that I think I've done a little bit too much complaining about it recently. You know, like I need to just remind myself, like it's still one of the best jobs in the world. You know, that like everybody wants to have, and it's a small price to pay to be able to like come to places like this and meet people like you, and like you know, flip games for a living and make videos that I really enjoy. So I'm really grateful.
And outside of like the gaming world, I'm just genuinely curious. Do people recognize you, like if they weren't a gamer? Because like I don't know, it's cool. Like YouTubers, like it's very niche. I was just thinking about this yesterday, talking to my friends who aren't collectors or gamers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder if they get recognized by non-gamer people, but they just saw them on YouTube or something, or a thumbnail.
I do get recognized every once in a while outside of events like this, especially if I go to like a game store or a pawn shop. It's definitely more likely there. Every once in a while when I go, like if I'm out to dinner or something like that, maybe a server will be like, hey, do I recognize you from YouTube or something like that? And it makes me feel famous with my friends, so that's fun.
You know what's funny, actually, one vendor over here, actually the one right in front of us, what is that, East Coast game? Eastern Retro?
Yeah.
One lady recognized me and they're like, oh, are you CJ? And I'm like, I got such a weird like excitement where I was just like, oh my god, someone recognized me, and I'm like, that was really cool because it felt like I was doing something right.
No kidding. Yeah, you must be. I mean, what did the person say about your content?
They were just like, I'm a fan of your page, and I'm like, I follow you and I watch your stuff, and I think you're doing a great job. And I was like, oh my god, it like really took me back because I wasn't expecting that. I was just doing my thing, just looking at the video games, and then she said that, and I was like, it was so
well
cool.
done. You officially made it.
Thank you. We're getting there. Also, when are you going to be sponsored by Chipotle? Because I love Chipotle. When are they coming on your door with that black card or that gold card?
I'm still hitting them up, although I have heard, actually, I was watching this, what was he? He was like a not a venture capitalist, but like a corporate investor. And he said that Chipotle's CEO is well known for not spending $1 on anything that he can't justify business-wise. So I think I might be going after the wrong corporation because they might be a little bit tight-fisted with that. Gotcha.
And also, like, side question, do you have a dream car, or are you like pretty humble with that stuff?
Honestly, my dream car is my Toyota Prius.
Okay.
One day, I'll tell you what my dream is. My dream upgrade is I'd love to have Apple CarPlay in it.
Okay.
That like hooks up to your phone and you don't have to, because right now I just stick my phone on the dash to navigate.
Yep.
That would make me feel super fancy if I got that upgrade. But dude, I freaking love the Prius, and I don't think I'll ever go back.
Hey, I mean, like, there's a guy on the golf tour, Scotty Scheffler, he's #1 in the world. I'm a big golfer.
Okay.
The man still drives the same car that he's had since high school.
Oh, wow.
And this guy's like a millionaire. He's already won like 8 tournaments this year, and like he's world #1, and that speaks volumes. So that's awesome.
It sure does. Yeah, I'm super happy with the Prius and would recommend it to anyone.
Totally. So the question was, when you're just starting out, should you focus on higher or lower dollar inventory? And I would say the answer depends on a couple big things. One is your cash flow, right? What are the cash constraints of your business? And two is, what is the sell-through rate of the inventory in question? So sell-through rate is just like when you go to eBay, how many of those items are listed versus how many are sold. So if there are 100 listed and 100 have sold in the past 30 days, that's 100% sell-through rate, and that's really healthy, and you can be relatively assured that if you price that right, it's going to sell, right? Because that's an item that has some demand. If there's 100 listed and only 10 have sold, that's going to be a much harder sale. So both that and what your cash situation will kind of dictate the answer to that question. Here's a big thing that like just in general, most successful business people over the course of their life tend to gravitate towards higher dollar sales if you can make it happen, right? Because higher dollar product means that you can make more money per item at the same margin. If cash flow is a big issue for you though, the way I started out with $500 in my crappy apartment was with 500 bucks. So cash flow was a big issue for me, and the only way that I was able to build that bankroll was being really selective with what I bought. So I would be buying books mostly for $1, $2, $3, sometimes at 25 cents, and then flipping them for at least 10 a piece, right? That's how to build that up really quickly in the beginning so that I didn't have to turn down those big collection deals that would come my way, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, go ahead.
What platform would you recommend for people starting out in the resale thing to use? Like eBay, Amazon, whatnot, there's so many options.
Yeah, the
all with
question
different
is,
levels of accessibility. So I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what you recommend.
What platform do I recommend most to sell on for beginners? It would depend a little bit on the situation and the kind of inventory that you have. But I think two really strong contenders are Facebook Marketplace is actually one that I recommend a lot because one, listing is really easy. Two, there's no fees. And well, honestly, that's pretty much it. those are the
great.
biggest reasons. Downsides of Facebook Marketplace, you have to deal with, like, it's more work per item because you have to deal with more correspondence.
Sure.
Right? A lot of people just saying, hey, is this available, and ghosting, you know? They I don't know, maybe people are messaging and then dying for all I know. It happens way too often. And then also, like, it can be a little bit sketchy with like meetups.
Yeah.
You know, in person. So you don't want to like do that after dark or anything like that. And it's more work per item once it's sold. So
Okay.
I would lean very heavily if you're doing that into trying to upsell, right, and create larger purchases per meetup. Say, hey, like if you buy this for 20 bucks, I'll throw in, like, if you want to do 4 more for 10 a piece of this lot, like, is that interesting to you, etc., and raise that average sale price per lot. But it's very beginner friendly. Another really beginner friendly. I mean, yeah, like eBay is the classic. They're not as beginner friendly because you have to learn a lot of item details and like listing optimization, but that can be learned pretty well with just a few YouTube videos. And you'll also have access to a massive buyer base, larger than any of the other options. Amazon, I wouldn't necessarily recommend to start with because there are too many hoops to jump through to get in the door, right, and get ungated and things like that, and I wouldn't want you to get discouraged.
Sure.
And then Whatnot can be really excellent as well, but it's slower in the beginning, right? You have to have, so I would rather you go for a method that will get you some quick wins, and then kind of start to branch out and test stuff, right? Taste things.
Yeah.
In that first, like, I would spend the first couple months just focusing on either eBay or Facebook. Once you've gotten some of those wins, then I would test out Whatnot, right?
Okay.
And test, I don't know, maybe Mercari or like, I don't know, Poshmark or something a little bit more random.
Sure.
Maybe test like selling at an event like this or something, because this can be another really great method that is a little bit underrated. Again, no fees except for the booth that you have to pay for. You don't have to worry about photos, don't have to worry about shipping. So selling at a convention or at local swap shops, that's something I'm really jealous of you guys about for California. You've got a ton of swap meet events and like little vendor, like organized where like 30 vendors will get together and they have tables. Like there's so much opportunity, like random game stores will put those on every like couple months. Super cool opportunity. We have nothing like that in Kentucky. So that could be a great thing to dabble in as well. Was that helpful?
Yes. I was also wondering, when you started out, you said you're in an apartment as someone who lives with someone who wants to resell and stuff. How do you like store it properly, but also like you live in an apartment in Los Angeles per se?
Right. So my first storage system for my inventory was the top of my dresser.
Right.
No, not a single shelf in sight. It was just a box that was so cluttered and disgusting, and my wife looked at me weird every time she saw it. And I would take just the worst photos on top of that very same dresser. I wouldn't, like, early on, it's just really important to do it. And like, it's gonna kind of suck, and you're gonna suck, and like, you just have to accept that that's part of the game.
Sure.
And that's the point that you have to start at to start getting better, right? And start over time doing things that suck a little bit less and a little bit less, right? And suddenly your photos kind of look okay, and people are messaging you about items more, right? And you're getting a few more sales. Like, my biggest advice for an apartment setup, like, you use as much natural light as you can. Right, you can go wood background, you can go white, you can go like textured. It doesn't really matter as long as people can see all of the item, and just as long as you're being selective about the kind of items that you're buying, it's not a huge deal to like just throw it in a box while you have 100 or fewer listings, and then you can scale from there.
Yeah.
Maybe upgrade to a couple shelves on the wall.
We do have 2 bookshelves, yeah. It's good.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're already ahead of where I was, so congratulations. Question was, when a new console comes out, should you try to flip that console or its games, or would you stick more with the older generation? Personally, the only reason that I would focus on acquiring newer generation consoles is if you're trying to go for the Facebook trade method. That can be really effective. There's a lot of hype around it, and people will be searching for it. The search volume will be high. I've never focused on the games because they're really hard to get used at all, and even harder to get used in like for the price that you would need to. The consoles themselves can be profitable if that gets a little bit into scalping territory. Like if there's low demand, I don't mess with that a lot, but I don't judge people who do. But on the whole, like the best strategy with newer gen stuff, I think, is trades. That's definitely the direction I would go. The older stuff is always going to be more consistent, more predictable, and easier to get higher margins on. Yeah.
Just real quick, as far as like console like generations of games, which ones have you found to have like the highest percentage margin of like you pay this much and you get this much out of it? Like
Yeah. So the question is, what generation of console has the highest margins? Right now, I'd say there's a lot of potential with 360, like these guys were saying, right? Anytime there's a significant shift in the digital availability of a platform, that's usually a good time to get in, especially when you're sourcing at like video game stores or swap meets or things like that, because oftentimes those prices will be a little bit slower to shift, right? Everyone isn't necessarily going to be repricing their games every day like you're going to find online. So 360 is a great one. I don't know, like, if PS3 is going to follow a similar trend soon. It very well could be. It was 3DS a year ago. Before that, I don't know, Vita, right, was really high for a while. So I would definitely focus on that based on the trends of digital availability. In general, like beyond that, probably Wii. Like it's Wii bundles. I heard from some of the like swap meet hunters out there that they find Wii collections more than anything else, because like it's such a broadly appealing console, right? Almost every family had a Wii, so they find Wii stuff all the time. It's fairly likely that they'll get it for a few bucks a game on average, but a lot of them flip for 20 plus, even the most common ones. So that's a great one if you're looking for a specific one to start hunting for. Specifically, I mean, we're in SoCal. Right? Like there's going to be a lot of competition, a lot of people out there looking for the same stuff. I personally highly recommend, there will be like apps that you can go on. You can go to Facebook Marketplace and like look for yard sales there. You can go to, there's an app called Yard Sale Treasure Map that will like populate them on a map, which is kind of cool. You can go to Craigslist, classified ads. But my favorite way is actually just driving around and finding signs. The ones that aren't listed anywhere, because you'll have a much better likelihood of being the first one to ask for games at those sales. I personally, this is maybe a little bit of a hot take, in an area like this, I wouldn't really go to like the community sales unless you're looking for more than just games. If you're looking for a little bit more broadly, any kind of nerdy stuff, or any, maybe you're into other stuff, or you know how to flip other things, they can be really great because you go boom, 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 right, and hit 50 sales in a few hours. But if you're just looking for video games, that's also where all the competition is going to go. So I would recommend just going to sales. They have no advertisement except for the neighborhood sign outside of their neighborhood, and also steering clear of the massive sales that everyone's likely to go to. Another big thing that I think is really underrated in terms of a flipping strategy is networking with all of your friends and family. How many of you guys have ever bought a video game from a friend or family member? A lot of you. At first it can feel a little bit like, I wouldn't even necessarily go to them and be like, hey, can I buy your games? I would just let everyone you can know that you're starting to flip video games, right? I'm really trying to like get this thing going, right? But it's kind of hard, you know, I can't always find everything, whatever. And naturally, if they've got stuff that they don't want anymore, they'll sell it to you, right? Because why would they sell it to anyone else? One line that I would use, especially if any of you guys are like in college or something like that, or in school and you know a lot of people with access to video games, say like, hey, I'll come to you and I'll beat GameStop prices guaranteed. You and I know that doesn't mean anything, right? Because they're gonna offer you a nickel and some pocket lint, but being able to offer someone the service of like, hey, I will pay you better than the next guy that you probably think of is going to pay you, and I'll save you the chore. Right? That's a huge value prop that I would really recommend for people to get games. A huge tip that you'll often hear, especially in the video game niche, is try to buy what's not for sale, right? So at yard sales, all of that stuff is already for sale, but maybe you ask them, hey, do you have any video games you could bring out? That's an example, right? Or if you're asking people who weren't even thinking of selling their games in the first place, that's another way of potentially buying games that aren't for sale. When you're buying stuff, I wouldn't necessarily recommend to like take all of the, like maybe you find a really good collection and you know, flip it for $300 profit. I wouldn't necessarily take that money and then spend it all on a, you know, copy, 1/3 of a copy of Kuon, you know, or, you know, the next Grail that you need. And take that money and save it up so that next time you can buy an even larger collection when it comes along. Because the last thing that you want to have happen is to have the right deal come along but not have the funding, right? Take it from someone who knows it feels really bad. Any other ways that you guys source consistently besides we had estate sales, we had yard sales? How else are you guys finding these things?
Trades, like new consoles.
That's a great one. Yeah, who are you trading with?
Usually on Facebook Marketplace, I'll just post like I have like a brand new whatever, and just I'm into retro games, so just send me like your pictures or photos or something.
Classic. Yeah, that's a classic way. So posting like, hey, I've got this thing for trade. I'm looking to trade for retro games, whether it's a Switch or a PS5 or whatever. Something that is high demand, high dollar, that people would be likely to trade a larger amount of like older stuff for that they might not even realize has potentially even more value, is usually the goal with that. Another thing on that topic is collector groups, especially local collector groups. Especially if you yourself are a collector, just getting involved with the community and letting people know what you do can be absolutely huge. I imagine that like SoCal in general would be absolutely massive, but if there's a more local one, right, like the Pasadena area retro collectors or whatever, I don't know what it would be called, like on Facebook, joining those groups, being active and genuinely contributing value, right, giving people good deals, doing good trades, can be huge for just getting your name out there and letting people know what you do. Knowledge that you came for how to find more underpriced games. The first one is an app that I really like. How many of you guys have ever done some game hunting while you're traveling? Anyone here? Anyone? How many of you guys have gone hunting, whether it's like at a pawn shop or maybe it's a flea market that you're excited about or a video game store and showed up and either it's closed or it's been out of business for years or you went to the wrong address? Anyone? Is that only me? Okay, some of you guys have. Here's the app that I love to solve that problem. It's called Map Marker. Map Marker. It's an app that allows you to drop pins anywhere you want on a map of a given city, color code them, and make notes, right? So I can pull up right now, like my map, well, I won't have one for California, but I can pull up my map of all the surrounding cities to Kentucky where I've sourced before, and I can see, oh, this pawn shop right here is green because they have good prices and a really solid selection. And next time I drive through that city, guess what I'm gonna prioritize? That pawn shop, right? And this one over here, oh, that I colored as brown because it was poopy. So I'm not going there again, right? So Map Marker was a real game changer. If there are any cities outside of your city that you go to consistently, download that app so that you can remember all the little holes in the wall that you need to make sure to go to every time you're driving through, and you can waste less time and find better games. Another one, we talked about yard sales earlier. When I'm considering what yard sales to go to, I'm a big fan of rural yard sales. And not just yard sales, but also pawn shops and game stores. Because they tend to get less traffic and have less competition, and they tend to be a lot happier about doing bulk deals if that's something that you're into. So whether you're sourcing the fleas or the pawns or the yards, whatever your preferred poison is, the more rural you can go, the more likely you are, at least I've found, to have success. When you're in the big urban centers, usually you're going to be competing with a lot of people, and it's kind of harder to score those deals. Another one, this is kind of I don't know, maybe it's intuitive, maybe it's not, but if this is something that you're looking to take seriously, business cards are huge. Like just getting your info out to as many people as possible, whether it's friends and family like we talked about before, or especially all of your local businesses that also deal in some kind of collectibles or physical goods, right? So I'm talking toy stores, pawn shops, comic shops, card shops, vintage shops, all the kinds of places that may theoretically, maybe GameStops, right? If they're not buying some of the stuff. The best way to get those people to refer you business is to first bring them business, right? So anyone else, like say you're part of one of those collector groups that I was talking about earlier, and you can refer them to say, hey, go check out, Vintage Tea Heaven. And, I know Rob there, he'll hook you up. Once Rob's had 1, 2, 3 people come in saying, hey, Tony told me this spot is great. When you go in next time, guess what he's gonna feel obligated to do, right? Bring you some business. If you say, hey, by the way, I've really appreciated the relationship. Hopefully you've gotten something out of the business I've sent your way. If you ever have someone in here who's looking to sell some games, would love it if you gave them one of my cards here, right? Leave a stack with them. That's a win for their customers because they're, giving them a way to sell stuff that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to. And it's a win for you because you never would have had access to that person, right? Because they're not posting stuff. Again, their stuff isn't for sale yet. They're just asking around to a local store that they're in. Those kinds of relationships, one of my biggest mottos on the channel is collaborate, don't compete, right? Opportunity is everywhere. I think so many resellers, their businesses could double or triple in a year if they leaned into those local connections. And there are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of businesses that are adjacent to video games, even within video games, that there's just, it's really crazy. Like, it's crazy the amount of business that is just lost because people don't have the right person to plug. So if you can become that person to businesses and start generating those win-wins, especially if you're bringing each other business, boy, not only will it have a significant impact on your business, but it just feels really good. I just love having those kinds of mutually beneficial partners. Some lesser used apps for sourcing. We talked about Whatnot already. Another one is Nextdoor. Any of you guys use Nextdoor?
Yeah.
Is this in California? Is like OfferUp or LetGo big? Are those defunct? Okay, they are. So those can be another couple ones as well. I believe they both have like local toggles that you can use to see listings that might be getting fewer eyeballs, but that are in your area that you can go and pick up. Maybe say, hey, like we could do this off platform and like I can pay cash, like what kind of a discount could you do? I could buy a lot, etc. That can be really huge. Any other like lesser used apps that you guys have had success on? Craigslist is another one that people will post stuff on. Yeah, go ahead. You said Mercari? Mercari's another great one. They've been going through a bunch of changes with like fee structures and all that have scared some people away, so it could be a good way to get deals recently. Another thing that's coming to mind for me is using atypical searches on Facebook Marketplace. So like maybe you start, this is especially true if you have kind of two niches that you're in. Like maybe you do video games and you also do like anime collectibles. And on your video game searches, maybe you're like a little bit too far off on like an Xbox you were trying to get a deal on, but you follow that conversation up with, hey, by the way, you have any anime stuff? That they just didn't necessarily even think to list, but if they're a video game nerd, there's a pretty good chance that they probably have some, and vice versa. You're doing anime searches or for like manga or whatever, and you couldn't come to a deal on that Shonen Jump set, but you're like, hey, by the way, do you happen to have any video games? Because I also buy a ton of that and would love to shoot you my best number possible. It's crazy like how many methods of succeeding there are that people just don't do as much of, right? Everyone wants to like go to the yard sale, right, and get the $5,000 score for, you know, 50 bucks from, you know, old nanny who doesn't know any better. But boy, there are so many. I talked to a guy last year who started flipping games from Twitter. He had this huge Twitter account that was for servers of restaurants that eventually he started posting more Magic content on, Magic the Gathering. And then eventually he just said, hey, anyone have used video games? At that point he had like 30,000 followers that were, you know, listening to him complain about serving and nerd out about Magic cards. And he built an entire reselling business off of sourcing games from Twitter from followers that were just into other random nerdy stuff because he saw the opportunity there and he believed that there was money out there. The number of stories that I hear like that are just wild. I heard of another guy, was talking to another guy earlier this year that was sourcing entirely on Discord, right? He was on a few Discord gaming servers and would just put out there, hey, just to let you guys know, before we start this League of Legends campaign, I also buy physical games. So if you have any of those laying around, I will give you the best numbers possible, shoot me some pictures, and we can go from there. There's so many ways to be successful. At this point, we are only focusing on one, because this is another tip that like, once you guys get out of the beginner phase and start to get a little bit more established, I'm just such a huge believer in focus, right? So at this stage, we're not dabbling in all of those different methods because we found something that works and we're doubling and tripling down. That's another big recommendation that I would have for you guys. Like once you do see that first level of success, triple down. Don't keep dabbling. Dabbling is really important in the beginning to figure out the lane that you want to pick, but the most successful people in the world, it doesn't matter what industry you look at, they find something they're good at and they do it for decades. The X factor that separates the people who like start and stop from the people who just keep pushing and eventually are successful is just grit, right? It's just perseverance. I don't think there's a huge like intelligence gap between me. I mean, look at my hairline, right? I've got a stain on literally the only pair of shorts that I brought to this show. I am not that much smarter than the like probably, I don't know, 70 or 80% of people who start flipping games and then never get anywhere with it. I just stuck with it longer and was thoughtful about the avenues that I was pursuing. I wanna tell you guys a story that really drives this point home about a vendor that I met at Midwest Gaming Classic, my first year of going to conventions. Dude had one of the best booths at the whole show. Tons of inventory, competitive prices. He was swarmed the whole time. And I went up to him and I said, you know, do you have any goals for this weekend? And he looked at me and said, I'm gonna sell everything. I was like, okay, that's, you know, optimistic, you know, good for you. He was like, no, I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to discount stuff until one of these vendors around here has no choice but to buy me out. I'm not gonna go back with anything. This is what I always do. And I was like, wait a second, you have like a really well-stocked booth here. How is it possible? Because this is not the only show that you do. I've seen you at other shows. How can you get enough inventory to like show up at other shows if you're trying to sell everything? And he pulled out his phone, brought up his contact list, and just started scrolling. And he said, you see this? There are 10,000 names in here of people who know what I do and just hit me up when they have stuff to sell. I've been doing this over 10 years, and this is the result. So by the time in 2 months the next show comes around, I will have bought more than this amount of stuff. I've got storage units full of this. I heard that and was like, oh my gosh, the compounding effects of sticking with one thing over time are more than I could even imagine. But ultimately, the biggest thing that separates people is just who sticks in the game the longest and is able to reap the effects of getting really good at something. Yeah, the question was, what's the best time, like when games start to leave shelves at the end of a console's life cycle, to pull the trigger on clearance games? I would say that depends a lot on the franchise. So if you're talking like you're seeing the first Sushi Striker games on 3DS go on sale for $25 rather than 30, I wouldn't necessarily bother with that. But if you're seeing Pokemon go on sale for 25 rather than 35, that's a pretty good price to get a sealed Pokemon game at, kind of no matter what you're talking about. It also depends on how long you're willing to wait. Don't be like me and buy a ton of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon for $35 and get impatient and just sell it a year later because you're tired of looking at it. You've got to really you've got to know yourself well enough to say, okay, I'm okay sitting on this for at least 4 or 5 years, right? Until this console really has been off of store shelves for a long time. Otherwise, I would only pull the trigger once it's at the point where you can buy it on clearance and immediately flip it, right? So understand your time horizon, and that will kind of dictate how long you need to wait and how low those prices need to go. Have I tried game hunting here at the expo? I went to Frankenson a couple days ago. Here's what I learned from Frankenson. How many of you guys have been there? So Frankenson is, I think, the largest collectibles flea market in the world, if I'm not mistaken. It's an old Sam's Club that is just chock full of Pokemon cards and pops and comics and toys and plushes and video games. There were probably 5 or 6 video game booths there. Here's what I learned. Most of the booths there were stickered at overmarket, right? So like a $30 game would be stickered at like 45, right? What I found though is like I still did business with every booth that I went to just by shooting them numbers on stuff. Because a lot of them are like, they know what they have into it. They're, the sticker price is kind of an aspirational price, and if they've been sitting on it long enough, they'll just let it go, right? So there might have been a game that was stickered at 40 that I offered 28, and they were like, yeah, that's fine. That happened 3 times in a row, and the booth owners there were really cool. So biggest advice for sourcing Frankensons would be be really friendly to the booth owners and just be like upfront about like what you're trying to do. They were all very like pro business. There's every once in a while I'll encounter a store owner or something like that that's a little bit weird about people flipping their stuff, but for the most part, every vendor out here is like, yeah, like if I'm making my money and you're making yours, cool. Like we're all kind of rooting for each other. And I found that was definitely the case at Frankenson, so I would recommend be cool with them, be upfront. It will always help if you're buying more, right? Like if you're willing to drop a few hundred, I wouldn't be surprised if you could get 25, 30% off of sticker, depending on who it is. I talked to one person specifically who told me like, I price stuff, at a higher level than I really expect because I always expect people to ask for a discount. And also like, I don't think they're gonna blame you if you offer them something that's a little bit too low. Because like you might show up a couple weeks later and they need to pay some bills and they'll take you up on it. So other than that, the only stores that I really have experience with around here are Chris, Retro Games Plus. Their prices tend to be pretty consistent with the market, even though in SoCal often stuff is a little bit more expensive. Yeah.
I'm curious if you still enjoy playing games as much as you used to before you started like resale business and everything.
100%. Yeah, I absolutely, the question was, do I still enjoy games as much as I used to? Yeah, have not lost even 1% of that. I will say, the thrill of like, when I first started this, anytime I even like laid eyes on a copy of Double Dash, it'd be like, spark something, right? Like, ooh, that's like so exciting. Now I probably have like 6 of them on my shelf in the basement. That is not there as much anymore, right? You can only flip so many Super Smash Bros. Brawls before you lose that spark of finding one, right? But in terms of playing and in terms of adding games to my personal collection, like the thrill is absolutely as alive as it ever has been. I had a huge Hades phase earlier earlier this year. Probably gonna have to cool off a little bit before I play Hades 2, but also played my favorite game ever last year, God of War Ragnarok, so that was thrilling. The question was how to balance like when the interests of the channel and the interests of the business are at odds. Is that fair? My strategy with that evolves every day. So what it looks like right now is I'm gonna start doing fewer collecting videos because it's less in line with what I'm doing for the business, right? So like all my content used to be just kind of filming the way that I was sourcing for the business, right? Going to pawn shops, going to these things and buying a bunch, going to buy a collection, etc. At this point, most of our buying we do from other resellers, right? That ship us stuff through our software and that just comes to our door, but that's not interesting to watch a bunch. So I've been having to find different avenues of making content that's still engaging. Anyways, I'm doing a lot more business heavy content now, and actually one thing that you'll start to see on the channel is going from like really wide videos, right? In the last couple of years, I've had a handful that have gotten like over 1 million views, which I'm really grateful for, but over time you'll see fewer and fewer of those because I'm doing more like business heavy interviews that are very much for like you guys, people who are interested in like video game business, right? Or collectibles business, or just interested in like, what's it really like to own a store, or to be a vendor, or to start a convention, whatever. And then from there, I may even go even tighter into like more tutorial stuff that I haven't done in forever. So we'll see. I'm at this point, much more at peace with getting less views and just providing more value to a tighter audience. This is another piece of advice that I would have for anybody who's starting a business, and that is understand, what are you optimizing for? Are you optimizing for maximum scale, right? Maximum revenue, maximum profit? Or are you optimizing for lifestyle, right? Are you building yourself a business, or are you building yourself a job? Because the answer to that question will completely dictate the actions that you take. One sort of limitation that I've put on myself, I'm much more trying to build myself a lifestyle rather than like an empire, is that I really don't want to leave the basement. So that makes it really hard when I'm trying to hire people, right? Because if I'm trying to recruit A+ talent, most of them don't really want to work in a basement, right? They would want to work in a warehouse and like, be a little bit more official. I'm fortunate that my only full-time employee, Spanky, I've known him forever, is fine. He likes the basement. So we just chill in there together. But it does mean that like, even though I would love, like through our software one-up, I'd love to have more things that we can buy, right? And more things that people can send to us, we won't have the space. So in order to scale that, I need to add other partner buyers, because I don't want to have all the overhead and the mouths to feed and the warehouse and the insurance and the retail or whatever it is. Other people do want that. So I want to partner with those people, provide the software and the marketing, right? And we can have mutually beneficial relationships there. But that's an example of, I know what I want, what I'm optimizing for, and it informed a decision that I'm making about the direction of the business. Because I don't want to have the 50-person warehouse. Other people do have that, and we can really help each other out. So I want to scale revenue as much as possible while scaling liabilities as little as possible, right? And overhead and expenses. That's kind of always the challenge. I've heard it said of business that as you grow, you're pretty much scaling closer and closer to a 0% margin, right? Because of all the overhead that you're adding. The hope is that revenue more than outpaces that, but I don't know. My business won't be as big as it theoretically could be if I went like the warehouse and employee and like all that route, or hire a COO of operations or whatever. I guess that'd be a COO, wouldn't it? But I'm okay with that. I'd rather have the kind of lifestyle I want. Anything else about like YouTube, about business building, finding games? Let me ask this: any questions? Any like more spicy or more personal questions that you're curious about, but don't really want to ask? Because how is he going to respond? Worst I'll say is I can't talk about that, but I like talking about the controversial stuff. I'm a pretty open book. Go ahead.
What are your thoughts?
Multiple hands, by the way. Go ahead.
What are your thoughts on Heck and Steve?
My thoughts on Heck and Steve, that guy. So for anyone who doesn't know, there's a channel out there who really likes to make videos bashing me and other resellers, and that's like what his content is. I actually went on his channel, believe it or not, against everyone's better judgment, and had a conversation with him about it, and kind of pushed back on like the idea of having a hate channel, and like, is this something that you really want to do with your life, and you know, why you know, you make me sad, guy. So my thoughts, I really, when dealing with the haters, my biggest philosophy that I try to remind myself of is to lead with empathy, right? One mantra that's helped me a lot is nobody hates you who's ahead of you. So just remembering that, like, in order to get to a place where you're willing to say nasty things about someone online, like, you're probably not a very happy person. That's what I try to think about, and it kind of takes me from a place of defensiveness and anger to more of a place of like sympathy. That's my best advice on that. I'm still figuring out how to deal with that stuff, because I feel like that's something that you're never really psychologically prepared for, is the reality of a lot of strangers hating you on the internet. Like, it feels weird. But I'm trying to do it with grace and in a way that doesn't cause me to become a more like angry defensive person. You know, that's the biggest thing. Like, I want the people who know me in real life to be happy with who I'm becoming, and not let that be too affected by the nastiness online. My favorite Pixel Game Squad member? Oh man, I'll say someone who's not on my payroll, because he has to like me no matter what. I would say, boy, it would be, I might go for the underdog of Curtis. You know, the more latecomer. One of my favorite traits is self-deprecation, and he's just all about that. You know, the other day I asked him, "How are you doing, man?" And he was like, "Just fat and ugly." I was like, "Oh, geez." So yeah, but boy, they're all so great. There's a reason that like they've been successful on YouTube for so long. Like, they're just so genuine and lovable. And part of the reason that there are so many people here today, like, it's rare to see a channel that like is as real as they are, and just as likable. Like, you will come up to them, any one of them, at this event, and they'll be the exact same person that they are on camera. It's cool to see. Is Riff actually what? Mean to me? That's a good question. That's something that people often don't really understand. Like, I'll have people say in the comments, like, "I can't believe you put up with him." Like, other people who are like, "Man, do you think Caleb realizes that like Riff is insulting him in these videos? Do you think he checks before they're uploaded?" And like, does it seem like Caleb and Riff actually have some beef behind the scenes? I think a lot of people, well, one, we never really like break those characters. You know, we're always kind of roasting each other, and I think that's part of the fun of it. But I think also a lot of people like haven't necessarily had a friend that they're so close with that like that's kind of how you communicate, right? Like, you jab each other and you give each other a hard time, and that's almost kind of how I say "I love you, bro." So there are a lot of people that dynamic is like kind of foreign to. But for all you guys, since he's not here, if he was here, I'd say, "Dude, I hate you," and you know, give him a wedgie. But since he's not here, I'll say he's been an absolute delight to work with. He's one of the best at his craft, and just such a genuine dude. I'm inspired by his work ethic and just like his character. He's such a good guy. I'm really lucky. Like, growing a YouTube channel, one of the single biggest benefits of it has been the people that I now get to associate with, right? Like, the caliber of people that I get to be in the same room with, and they're no exception. Like Chris, Ricky, Lance, the whole team here. I just feel really lucky to get to do what we do.
Thank you, Caleb. I appreciate your time, and great job this weekend. It means a lot that you took the time to talk to me, and I really appreciate you.
Well, hey, keep up the good work with the channel, and I wish you the best.
Thank you.